All right. Welcome back, folks, to the Nothing Notable Podcast, NBA Season Preview Edition.
Woo.
I'm Jack Hubert, joined by Daniel Elmore. And Dan, somehow, some way, the NBA season is here. It feels like just yesterday we were watching Kawhi Leonard defeat the dynamic duo of Steph Curry and Quinn Cook. And here we are. The season starts tomorrow when we're recording this, yesterday when it's being uploaded. How did we get here? What's going on?
I have no idea. We talked about this off mic, but this is the least prepared for an NBA season that I've ever been. I think a big part of that is because the offseason was dominated by storylines about two players, not by teams, not by storylines that extended from the previous season. The Ben Simmons saga has been talked about to death, as has the Kyrie Irving story. And it's just that's been the dominant narrative going into the season. And so when we're focused on the players specifically and sort of the non-basketball elements of those stories, it was kind of hard to even think about the NBA season, especially because the NBA season is going to be so impacted by what happens with especially Kyrie Irving, because the Nets are such a front runner with Kyrie and they still are without him. But in order to know what to expect, we need to know if Kyrie is going to play or not. So again, it was just one step removed from even thinking further into the NBA season.
Right. I feel like normally building up to a season of any interesting major sport, really, we have all this drama that's surrounding and all these storylines. And we didn't have dramatic storylines this year. We had just absolutely stupid ones. The Kyrie Irving situation is the dumbest thing ever. The Ben Simmons one, we'll get to it later on one of our topics, but just makes no sense. I don't know what anyone wants out of that. And here we are, the season's starting. So without further ado, let's get into it. We just got a couple of questions today that we're going to be running through. Our first question is, who is a sleeper team this year? What is a team that you got your little eye on to see that might surprise people this year? Might outperform expectations?
So this was tough because, when we start talking about underrated, overrated, and this is really when I go full Rosillo at this point. When we start talking about underrated, overrated, I only know what I believe, and what I believe is different from what a lot of other people believe. So I don't know if I'm technically over or underrating certain teams. If you look it up, you'll see Chicago is on a lot of lists for sleeper teams, most underrated teams. You'll see the Memphis Grizzlies. You'll see the Charlotte Hornets. These are three teams that I was tossing around. I'll just talk about the Chicago Bulls right now because I think that they're an interesting team, and I do think that they're a sleeper team. They're an underrated team. Last year when they traded for Vucevic, that was a significant trade, and they showed some promise. And this offseason, they get DeRozan, they get Ball. And so that combo right there, or that trio rather, of Ball, DeRozan, and Vucevic is enough for me to say, they'll be competitive all season long.
With Zach Levine, too. Olympic gold medalist Zach Levine.
How could I forget Zach Levine? Zach Levine was almost one of the finalists for one of the other categories. And also, I think Zach Levine, one of the other categories was going to be sleeper players, and I just couldn't pick one, so we scratched it. But I guess I'll say Zach Levine. I think that he's been vastly underrated for a long time. Last year, he kind of got overrated also, so that's why I didn't end up making him a sleeper player, because he's technically not a sleeper player anymore. But him plus that trio, I think, is a very good 4 out of 5 guys. I think that that's good enough to make the playoffs, especially in the East.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Bulls, I love the Lonzo Ball pickup. I think I did not initially like Lonzo that much when he came into the league, but I think he's really developed his game over the last couple of years, especially when he got to New Orleans as, a shooter especially. I don't have the numbers in front of me because, I'm not a big numbers guy. All right. I let my eyes tell me what I'm seeing. I don't rely on box scores or statistics, ones and zeros. That's not who I am. I let my eyes do the talking.
Hell yeah. Analytics is stupid.
Right. But just he's way more comfortable shooting and way more efficient, which shows that I like when players develop and get better. There's some players, Ben Simmons, who have not gotten any better since they've been in the league, who were, 40% free throw shooters when they got in the league, or are now 40% free throw shooters still. Mm-hmm. The fact that Lonzo was able to develop says a lot. I've always been a big DeMar guy. I know DeMar is not the greatest player in the world. He's kind of always been in maybe that fringe all-star level, even though I think he's made a couple of all-star teams. But, I felt bad when he got traded from the Raptors and they won the title the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, we all felt bad. That was one of the saddest stories. And they asked him to comment and he gave really heartbreaking answers. It was a real bummer. Yeah.
But, you got those two. Zach Levine is an all-star guy. Vucevic is an all-star guy. They also got Alex Caruso too, who I think is a perfect 6-man guy. Just because when you got a guy coming off the bench, I think you want a lot of energy from that guy. Someone who can kind of give you a little spark and flip the script if you need. And I think he totally does that. They're an interesting team. I definitely think they can be anywhere from 4th through 7th in the East. I think they can slot anywhere into that range.
I agree. And the ball part of it is really exciting. I think that's we kind of know what to expect from Ball because he is still growing, but that sort of is the X factor for the team. We know what we're going to get out of Zach Levine. We know what we're going to get out of Vucevic. We know what we're going to get out of DeMar DeRozan. That's kind of one of the appeals of signing DeMar DeRozan is he is so consistent and has been the same player for so long. He's a floor raiser.
And he's gotten better too. Has this really nice floor, but last year he really developed as a playmaker.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of different guys who can, do stuff with the ball, who you can run the offense through, which is really nice.
You got a bunch of guys that are going to not only improve the quality of play on the floor, but they'll improve the quality of the culture in Chicago, which has been so bad, for lack of a better term,
just
for
lost.
It's just bad for so long. And hopefully they'll be a fun team. I think anytime you have a Ball brother on a team, it's kind of fun, because of the dynamic playmaking, like you said, and then. Yeah, for all the other reasons I've already said, I think they're a good team, and I think they're going to be a fun team.
Absolutely. My sleeper team this year, I think they're going to sneak into the playing game. The Sacramento Kings.
I love this.
They haven't made the playoffs since 2006 or something like that. They have been an absolutely pathetic organization, but I really like what they got going on there this year. I think De'Aaron Fox is a budding superstar. I think this is going to be the year he breaks into his first All-Star team, even though the West is just extremely crowded. I'm a big Haliburton guy.
Yeah.
I think he takes a leap forward this year. Harrison Barnes, I think, say what you will, solid player, just solid guy, not the greatest player in the world. I like Buddy Hield a lot too. I thought the Lakers made a big mistake by trading for Russell Westbrook instead of Buddy Hield. Rashawn Holmes playing the 5 for them I like a lot. And then they drafted Davion Mitchell this year, who I was super high on. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people didn't like him as much, but I think he's just an absolute gamer.
Yeah.
I like where they're heading this year. I think they can, sneak into the playoff picture.
When they took Davion Mitchell, I was like, oh, hell yeah. Good job, Kings. But also I was worried. I was like, shoot, now we lost Davion Mitchell to the Kings.
Right.
My love for De'Aaron Fox has been on record, and I like Buddy Hield. I like all of these players, and maybe we just needed to wait a couple of years.
Right.
Maybe that was the problem. Maybe we were just expecting too much from a lot of young guys at an early age. Maybe we just had to wait a few years, and maybe that will be the case. It's definitely going to be a weird Western Conference, so I don't know how they'll slot because of that, but I like my chances when I have a bunch of young guys that I think can reach star levels. Mm-hmm. And De'Aaron Fox can certainly do that. I still think Buddy Hield can reach that level. Tyrese Haliburton is just as soon as he got drafted, everyone knew exactly what he was going to provide. And everyone was like, why, how did our team mess up on this? How did we not take this guy? So maybe that's indicative of a better future for the Kings, because I do like these last couple drafts for them, and they have been a laughingstock for so long. If you ask Ben Simmons, they're not even a California team, as per his trade demands. But I would love to see them succeed, because in the same way that I like Memphis and the young core Charlotte, I like seeing young cores elevate past expectation.
Right, and I think everyone has so much faith in these other young kind of interesting teams Charlotte or Memphis, like you mentioned, but no one seems to care about the Kings.
Nobody cares.
No one cares. And I would throw them right into that same group of I think they're the exact same caliber as those teams who people are talking about, sneaking into the play-in games, or I don't know. I think they're that same caliber of team, and I'm excited to see what they do this year.
They just need to hit a stride at the end of the season, and then if that happens, then they could actually make a little bit of noise. Because for the most part, they do tend to sort of fall asleep at the wheel at the end of the season and then drive off the road, and then they don't make the playoffs. But the teams that they're competing against at the those bottom seeds, it's like the Spurs are always in the mix, even though they're not an exceptional team. Like, do I think that they're better than the Spurs? Absolutely. They should be. There's no reason that they couldn't sneak in, especially with the play-in game, because the play-in game can do some stuff, and we're pro play-in game.
Pro in playing games.
We're pro play-in game.
Right. Well, we can't just talk about good things on this podcast, because what would that be? Why would that be fun to only be optimistic?
Clicks.
So let's talk about a couple of teams who, you're lower on than the field. Some teams that you think are going to be a little disappointing this year. Again,
when I talk about, like, I don't know if I'm in the same boat as everyone else when we're talking about over or underrating, but let's just talk about the Los Angeles Lakers for a second here. We're overrating their potential to win a title this year. I think the value that we're seeing is like the regular season. I expect them to be a top 3 seed because, say what you will about Russell Westbrook, he wins games in the regular season. He plays his ass off in the regular season. Part of the reason he falls apart in the playoffs is because he's so banged up. And he goes 110 miles an hour every single game in the regular season. So I expect them to look better in the regular season than they did last year. But I mean, look at this team. Does the best team win every year? The answer is no, obviously not. But there has to be some piece of the puzzle that is significantly better than the other team's piece of the puzzle. And last year was Giannis. Giannis was better than the big men of Phoenix. The year before, it was also Anthony Davis and LeBron James being better than the stars of Miami. There has to be something. I don't look at this Lakers team and say, oh, they have something that is just clearly head and shoulders better than the Nets or the Bucks. Even if you say Anthony Davis is going to be healthy all year and he's going to be peak Anthony Davis form, I'm still looking at like Giannis and I'm like, I don't know anymore. I don't know if it's an easy cakewalk for Anthony Davis anymore. I'm looking at the Nets and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe Kevin Durant and James Harden could absolutely outscore LeBron James at this stage in his career. And then on top of that, which I kind of was just alluding to, like the LeBron James factor, like we've been talking about this a lot in the offseason. LeBron James is not the same LeBron James that he was. We saw a decline last year and I was in denial of it all season because, like, just like Russillo, I don't want to go against LeBron James because he's always proved us wrong. So I'd rather be late on this take than anything else. So I'm not going to say he's like not a top 10 player anymore. So I don't know. If this was 4 years ago and this was peak LeBron and peak AD and you're telling me that there's going to be no injuries and this was, well, I think that you could say that for the whole team. If this was 4 years ago, like peak Russell Westbrook, peak LeBron James, it is sort of like one of those.
Peak Carmelo Anthony.
Peak Carmelo Anthony. Yeah. And then you've got the whole like NBA media like talking about this team like, oh, it's gonna be a big hurrah, like everyone's counting them out. Like that's part of the whole like LeBron James media thing, like somehow the media is always like, oh, they're counting him out even though he's the best player in the world. So I'm a little long-winded, but I'm not seeing the same thing that everyone else is seeing. I don't see a title contender with this Lakers team. Could they win it? Sure, I guess so, because you can never count out LeBron James.
Right. I think playoff basketball is different than regular season basketball. I feel like we've seen it time and time again. There's layers to this stuff.
There's layers.
LeBron is not the same as he once was. And that's, I don't think that's a disrespectful thing to say because the dude's going to be 37 in 2 months.
And he's still great.
The fact that he is still as good as he is remarkable at his age. It's truly like one of the greatest feats in professional sports history.
Yeah.
But I don't know if 37-year-old LeBron is a guy who can carry a team to a championship anymore in the playoffs. The big thing that I think the team's lacking is perimeter scoring. And people, it was funny to me when people were like, oh, they got Kent Bazemore. That's a 3-point shooter. I'm like, kind of saw it last year. Not really. I mean, Bazemore can give you like 10 to 12 good minutes, but like if you're counting on him to be like your 3-point guy, kind of weird. Horton Tucker on the Lakers is a guy who I feel like went from being underrated to being overrated now, and everyone's like, he's the next star. And I'm like, if he was playing on the Detroit Pistons, no one would give a single anything about him.
Yeah, very true.
Like, he's a solid player, but like he's not he's not gonna be an all-star. And I hate to talk down on a guy, but that's just the truth of it. Like, he's a good player, but he's a bench player still. the Westbrook thing to me is weird. It was one of those moves where like it felt like when the Houston Rockets traded for Russell Westbrook. When it's like, what are we doing here? This feels like an NBA 2K move because on paper, what I always thought this team needed was more 3-point shooting. And they got less of it by getting Russell Westbrook. They got rid of, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, which say what you will about him, can hit threes. I'm very happy for Kyle Kuzma that he got traded because I think he just needed a fresh start. Like, I think they'll be, like you said, good in the regular season. They'll probably be like a top 3 seed. But when it comes to the playoffs, like, I don't know. I don't think they have that guy who you can just go to and be like, get me a bucket. Which in the playoffs, I think you need. When you get down the stretch, final 2 minutes of the game, you need a guy who can get you a bucket. We saw it last year with, Devin Booker or Kevin Durant or Giannis or Chris Middleton even was like getting buckets late in the game. I don't think the Lakers have that guy at this point. Now, could that all change if in like the middle of the season they pull off a trade for like Bradley Beal or someone like that? Someone becomes available and they make a move? Maybe, but as it currently stands, I don't think they're a championship team. And you might play this back in 9 months and I look stupid, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that also, because I did look stupid last year because I had the Lakers for pretty much all of the season, even going into the playoffs, just because I was still on the LeBron James hype train where like you just can't count him out. And still you can't. But what I saw in the playoffs, I'm not going to forget. And what I saw in the playoffs was not a bad LeBron James, not even necessarily like a tired LeBron James. It was just a sort of differential LeBron James. Mm-hmm. He was more looking to get teammates involved than make huge shots until he really had to. And there were stretches of the game where I was just like, why aren't you taking over? Why aren't you putting on the cape and going superstar LeBron James mode? And I don't think it's because he's not capable of doing it anymore. I just think that maybe he's in a different stage of his career. And I mean, I don't know. But he was desperately needing Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis has been, street clothes for so long.
Right.
Now you're asking a lot of things, right? You're asking for so much. You're asking for a healthy Russell Westbrook and a healthy Anthony Davis and a healthy LeBron James. And Carmelo Anthony is not really like a huge part of this, but like you're asking for a healthy Carmelo Anthony as well, which is a big thing to ask of players of this age. And the way that these guys play does not indicate to me that they will be able to stay healthy, especially Russell Westbrook. And so you better hope that you have like 2 or 3 really great guards underneath them that could really stretch the floor and like hit some threes and do some stuff if he's out. And I just don't know.
How long until you think Russell Westbrook and Rondo get into a fight?
God, I'm hoping immediately. I'm hoping
immediately.
I'm hoping immediately.
Night.
Yeah.
My team that I don't know if it's like an overrated team, but a team that I'm like ready to be disappointed by again is the Utah Jazz. Mm-hmm. This isn't even like a hot take or anything. I just think we know like what's going to happen with the Jazz. Like they're going to be like a top 2 seed in the West because they have a good team. And then they'll get to the playoffs. And when they face another top team, they'll lose because Rudy Gobert's absolutely useless in the playoffs.
Because they'll put him in the washing machine. Put him on spin
in the washing machine.
Cycle.
If anybody gives Rudy Gobert a Defensive Player of the Year vote, they should immediately have their credentials rescinded. Like right away. This is why, I mentioned earlier, I'm not a numbers guy. I don't believe numbers are even real sometimes because it was tough for me to watch the playoffs last year. And this dude who was apparently like the greatest defender ever, teams were going after him. Not even just teams. Terrence Mann was going after him. They were like, just get Terrence Mann the ball in the corner and Rudy Gobert's going to let him hit a 3 every time.
Yeah.
Like, I love Donovan Mitchell. I think Mike Conley's very good. Mike Conley's still on the Jazz, right? I didn't miss anything in the offseason.
No, still there.
Okay, because I know he was a free agent. I'm pretty sure he re-signed with the Jazz. But like, I like those two. But like, I don't know. They're a good team, but they're not like a team that can win a championship. And, we'll get to the playoffs and there'll be people who are like, I don't know. They were the best team in the West this year. Don't we have to give them some respect at least as a chance to win? And I'm like, nah. Not really.
Yeah. I think the Rudy Gobert thing is really fun. Because, like, if I'm building a team and somebody's like, hey, do you want Rudy Gobert? I'd be like, yeah, hell yeah. Good player. Like, multi-time defensive player of the year. Sick. I'll take him. But like you said, playoff basketball is a completely different animal. And when you get there, that is the fatal flaw of the Utah Jazz, the same way that Ben Simmons has been the fatal flaw of the Philadelphia 76ers. If you cannot hit free throws, if you cannot be a sublime scorer, or at least an adequate scorer in final minutes of games, and you're limited on defense to sort of a one-track skill, which is like paint protection, that kind of goes away if you're playing a bunch of 3-point shooters, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also 3 points is more than 2 points. So like, you know, good job on the NBA for figuring that out a few years ago. So the Rudy Gobert part of it, it's like, yeah, he is a classic, like, win you games in the regular season. And we saw this last year with Ben Simmons too. I mean, we'll come back to this, but like in the regular season, we all thought like, oh, they figured it out. They did it.
I picked them to make it to the finals.
Yeah, they finally figured it out. And I was high on them too. And then you get to the playoffs and you're like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, no, that's why. This makes more sense. Because in the regular,
Ben Simmons is terrible.
yeah, we totally forgot what the fatal flaw was. But so yeah, with the Jazz, they are like the Jazz fans. Yeah, they are like, where's our respect? We were so good last year, and the respect is in the toilet because Rudy Gobert takes a shit every night. And like, I don't know what to do with them. You know, like I love Donovan Mitchell. Love Donovan Mitchell. And
I would like to see him stay with the Jazz because I really like players staying with the team that drafted them.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see small market teams succeed. That was one of the things that was so awesome about Giannis winning the Bucks winning the finals last year with Giannis, is that Giannis stayed and he didn't go to like Dallas or New York or Los Angeles. He stayed there.
I think the Rudy Gobert thing is just too significant to get around.
Yeah, I know you said, like, if someone asked you, like, you're building a team, do you want Rudy Gobert? You'd say, yeah, but what if I told you got Rudy Gobert, but you had to pay him $200 million?
Yeah, that's when it starts to get a little fishy. That's when I start.
It's like, oh, like, here's the thing. I mean, not to like hit Rudy Gobert over the head with a giant hammer or anything like that. But
sure.
Like, Rudy Gobert more or less plays like the JaVale McGee role at like a high level.
Yeah.
Except JaVale McGee plays on a minimum contract and like Rudy Gobert is getting $200 million. And it's a stupid thing to say because like Rudy Gobert, better player than JaVale McGee. Olympic gold medalist JaVale McGee, mind you. I don't know. I'm ready to like get excited about the Jazz because like I like small town teams doing well. But then like I know how the story ends. Okay. It's the same thing I was saying, about baseball with my Oakland A's all year long. I'm like, I know how this story ends. They'll be good in the first half and then they'll wet the bed. And Rudy Gobert has wet the bed a lot.
Yeah. We've read this book before. We know where it's going to end. And when Rudy Gobert does win Defensive Player of the Year again, you'll have that too.
I'm going to be upset. Transitioning now from upset to confusing. There's a lot of teams right now that I feel like are more or less in like limbo, and we kind of don't know what's going to happen with them. What team to you is like the most confusing going into this year? Because
the question is about like confusing teams, and confusion doesn't lend itself to deep analysis. I'm going to throw in two teams and just do a little quick hits on both. It's Miami and Toronto.
Okay.
Miami is confusing because I just don't know how to rate them. Like, I don't know what to expect from them. They make a move in the offseason. They get their guy. They get Kyle Lowry, right? I didn't miss anything, right?
Yeah, Kyle Lowry. PJ Tucker.
This offseason was weird.
It was weird.
They get Kyle Lowry. I like Kyle Lowry. I like Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy Butler is also one of those players that if you start looking at some of the like analytics, it's like, I don't know, like maybe because we got so high on Jimmy Butler when he made his finals run, and I was super excited for him, and it was a lot of fun. But then last year was a little bit of a disappointing year.
He was great in the regular season, and then like the playoffs, he was atrocious.
Yeah, and you can contribute a lot of factors. You could still get away with the excuse of like COVID has been weird for everybody, which is true because like a lot of people are just like in a weird mental space because of that. So you can always use that argument, and I wouldn't fault you for using that argument. But Jimmy Butler is a guy that is sort of similar to Russell Westbrook. He's got a lot of mileage on him because he goes really hard, and I feel like I'm seeing him wear down just a teeny bit every year. And so I don't know if their best days are ahead of them, basically, is what I'm saying. And I just don't know if they're going to end up being the 3rd seed in the East, or if they're going to be the like play-in team in the East. I just don't know what the cards are going to hold for them. And then I feel similarly about the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors, like, everyone was ready to anoint Nick Nurse as the greatest coach of all time, and he is a great coach. And he's been dealt a really crappy hand the last few years with the team that he's had. And then the Pascal Siakam thing kind of took a turn. We all thought he was ready for superstardom, and then didn't quite happen. But again, you could say the same thing, like, man, it was just kind of an off year. He'll have an up year again. So it's like both of these teams, I'm just like, I don't know what to do with. Right. They could easily disappoint or exceed expectations.
Yeah, let's start with the Raptors there. Yeah, they're a weird team this year because I don't know like how much of what we saw last year was real and how much of it was like the fact that you're being forced to live somewhere else for the whole season is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Siakam's going to be out for like the first month or two, something like that, and that's going to hurt them. Van Fleet has turned into like a solid player, like a really solid player.
Yeah, I like Van Fleet.
I like Van Fleet a lot. The Goran Dragic thing is weird to me. Like, he's not like, they moved him in the sign and trade, so they got like something for Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
They got him and Precious Achiuwa, but like Dragic looked kind of washed last year a lot of the times. Scotty Barnes, I really liked in the draft, but like I don't think he's a guy who like can come in and contribute on a, winning team right away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because he needs some work offensively. His defensive game is great. OG Anunoby I like a lot.
Yeah, we love him.
We're big OG Anunoby fans here. But like I don't know if this team's gonna be like a top 4 pick in the draft team, or like they're gonna be like the 6th seed in the East. Like it can go either way.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I
Is
really
like
don't know.
They really could be. They really could be like absolutely horrible. They could be like truly terrible. They could sink the season early, or they could be in the hunt. There's no way to project because like it's like there's just so many different little factors. I have no way of projecting what is, because with a lot of other teams, like you have a track record, you have something to base your opinion on. The Warriors are getting Klay Thompson back, and Jordan Poole is becoming a superstar. So like you can project that where they were last year, they'll be better than, because they're adding these two, they're adding Klay Thompson and then an improved season for Jordan Poole. But like, yeah, with the Raptors, it's like, I have no idea what to expect.
No idea. And there's also, I think, a very real scenario where if they are not playing well come like trade deadline time, that Pascal Siakam gets moved out of there. I know there was a lot of talk around him this offseason getting moved. Dragic seems like a guy who would be like, he's on an expiring contract, so prime position, I think, for a team that's making a playoff push and wants a backup point guard to trade like trade something for him. Van Fleet, I think, would stay there no matter what. I think they'd hold on to him and like build around him. But like, I don't know. They're just in such a weird spot right now. And then the transition over to the Heat, where they're going to end up the season, is going to depend on Tyler Hero.
Yeah, that was a big part of it last year.
Which like makes me nervous because
yeah,
like Tyler Hero, we really only saw like 2 or 3 good months of in the bubble. Like people were expecting Tyler Hero to make this huge jump because what he did in the bubble was so much better than what he did in his rookie year regular season. And then last season, he kind of went back to that non-bubble form. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to need him to play like a significant role on this team because like they have the pieces there. I feel like the individual building blocks look good. Kyle Lowry, I don't know if I would have given him that big of a contract just because like he's like 35 right now.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't love paying players that much when they're that old. Big fan of Duncan Robinson. He's a one-dimensional guy, but he's extremely good at that one thing. Jimmy Butler, I feel like you hit the nail on the head where he's like, again, kind of just don't know what we're getting. I mean, we do know what we're getting, but we also don't. Like we know we're getting like an elite level player, but we don't know if it's going to be like elite level player, if that makes sense. If he's going to be like a finals MVP type of player. Love Bam.
Love
Big Bam fan.
Big Bam.
But again, yeah, I don't know. This is a team that could be the 3 seed in the East, or they could be like the 7 seed if things go wrong.
I think a big part of it also is like Jimmy Butler. If he was a sharpshooter, then I'd feel a little bit more comfortable being like, oh, they'll definitely be at least above the 5th seed. But like Jimmy Butler is not a shooter. Like he is not. His shooting has actually gotten worse. again, it's just like, it's a projection issue. It's not that I'm saying that they're going to be bad or that they are going to be great. It's just like, I don't know how to project them. So I'm not going to sit here and say they will be this or that. It's like, they're just confusing. I don't know what to do with them.
My team, I was going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers for my team, but I don't really want to. Like the Ben Simmons thing is weird, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know what's going on there. A team that I think is weirder and more interesting to talk about is the Pelicans.
Yeah.
I don't know what the direction of this team is. I have no clue what's going on. Zion apparently is going to miss like a couple weeks, which is not good. Not good for them.
A couple weeks, I don't know about. I feel like it's going to be way more. Because he kind
of just popped up on the injury report out of nowhere, which always seems like it's going to be one of those things where it's like 2 weeks or so. And then it's like 2 months later, like, a couple more weeks and he'll be there. I don't love the Zion Brandon Ingram fit as like much as I like those two individual players. I don't think they fit particularly well. Lonzo's a big loss for them, I think.
Yeah,
I think Lonzo's a really good player. They brought in Valanciunas, I think.
They did. They brought in Valanciunas.
And I'm a big Valanciunas guy, but I don't feel like big, slow interior guy was necessarily like what they needed to take themselves to the next level. You know what I mean?
I don't know where their priorities lie with this team building.
Right.
And when you can't trust the team building, like you can't trust that they're going to be a good team.
Right. And it feels like they got Devontae Graham too, and that kind of felt like an afterthought. Like that was just like, we have this money that we have because we didn't get Lonzo, and we got to do something with it now. And I think Devontae Graham's fine, but I don't know. I don't know what the direction of this team is, and I feel like they are very close to losing Zion long term. Like I don't know. Like they haven't really laid out any reason for Zion to stay with this team. You know, Zion is a very, very, very good player, all NBA caliber player. I don't know if I would use the word generational because I feel like that gets thrown around too much. But he's like an all NBA type of guy, and you don't get those guys on your franchise very often. And the Pelicans have gone 2 in the last 10 years, and they're about to blow with both of them.
It's really disappointing, especially because we both love Zion Williamson. I don't know. So here's like a very sincere thought. You know, Jonah Hill the other day posted on Twitter. He's like, I don't want you guys to talk about my body. It makes me uncomfortable. Whether it's like I'm heavy or super skinny, it makes me uncomfortable. So I don't want to talk about Zion's body, because like, you know, whatever weight he wants to play at is like whatever weight he wants to play at. But I will just say that it's a serious concern for injury over the course of his career if he continues to be at a heavier weight. I don't want to shame Zion Williamson for his weight because like I don't want to be that guy, especially because so much of the NBA media is like just dogging him for it, and it's kind of hacky just to do it in the first place. But it is an injury concern, and I'm now growing more and more concerned about the longevity of his career, especially because he comes into the season injured, and he comes into the season appearing to be heavier than he was at the end of last season. Maybe that's just a James Harden Houston filter which you know. For whatever reason, the cameras in Houston just like had a heavy filter on him. And then once he got to Brooklyn, he like slimmed down. So maybe it's just the cameras. I don't know. But he does look a little bit heavier than he was last year. And the only reason I mention it is because that is concern for injury. And what's going to end up happening is he is so talented, but maybe he is just going to be injury prone because of the weight. And he's going to get the max contract. He won't want to be there. He'll force his way out. He'll go to the Knicks or something like that. And then have a off and on injury riddled, what could have been kind of a career. That's like my fear. I'm hopeful that that's not the case because we are always hoping for the best career for every one of these players. But
even Rudy Gobert.
And so not only is like, because I think a lot of people are talking, like you were just talking about, like the building around Zion part of it. Like, I don't know how it all fits together with Zion. I'm actually growing more and more concerned with the central focus point, which is the Zion piece of it. And I think that what they lost out on was they should have built around Ball and Zion. They should have made that sort of the focal point. I mean, that seemed kind of obvious to everybody watching it. I think a big part of it was like the coaching last year was just so bad. As far as I could tell, sitting on my couch, I'm not an NBA coach. But that seemed like kind of a winning formula. You got an elite playmaker who is very unselfish with the basketball, and you have an absolutely elite interior offensive player who could just get to the hoop with sheer force of will at any point. So that should have been the combo going forward, and then they should have built for whatever those two needed. But they didn't. Instead, they signed Jonas Valanciunas, who, like you said, we both like, but a weird signing. It's just more clogging up of the paint, and that's not what you need with Zion.
It was like they traded Steven Adams for Valanciunas, and it was like you got rid of one problem and added like another one.
Yeah.
Like, and I really like Jonas Valanciunas as a player. I don't understand why Memphis traded him for Steven Adams either, but I don't think that's going to fit well together. I totally agree with your point about building around Lonzo and Zion. I think that was the obvious way to go. Even from not just an on the court, but from a marketing perspective, it feels like marketing those two together is a lot better than Brandon Ingram and Zion.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm concerned and confused about the direction that this team is going.
Yeah, it's a weird team. It's a confusing team. It's a disappointing team. And I feel bad for New Orleans fans because, like you said, twice now. They maybe have squandered it twice now.
Yeah. I know we said we were going to cut the sleeper player pick, but I'm going to use it as a chance to make this a Backdoor Warriors podcast.
Yeah.
I was torn on who to pick for this because I feel like there's actually several players on the Warriors who could be sleeper picks. Jordan Poole's the obvious one. I feel like everyone's kind of talked ad nauseum about him. I'm very excited for him this year. My other consideration was Andrew Wiggins. Maybe the most unnecessarily hated player in the NBA. Mm-hmm. He does like most things at a pretty high level. I know he has a big contract, but then like he's making like $25 million a year. I just saw Bridges in Phoenix sign like a $22 million a year contract. They're like kind of the same player.
Uh-huh.
So the fact that so Andrew Wiggins is like overpaid by like $3 million, maybe. Like he's not that overpaid. The guy I really want to talk about today, though, is James Wiseman.
Okay.
This is going to be the respect for James Wiseman season.
Here we go.
He had a rough year last year. Was also just a weird rookie year for him. Was never able to like get on the court for consistent, not just minutes at a time, but just like actually playing in games because of, he had COVID issues a couple times. He had a couple of injuries. He's like maybe a month or so away from playing this year due to a torn meniscus he suffered at the end of last season. But the talent with this guy is overwhelming. There is so much talent on there. There's very few 7-footers in the NBA who can, get a rebound, run the whole court, and Euro step for a dunk. He is one of a handful of guys in the league who can do that. And I think another year, the guy hadn't played basketball, like basically in like a year before last season. He played like 3 games in college. Like the last time he played was as a high school senior. I think another year of being around all these veterans, I think he's really going to develop into something special. I'm not saying he's going to reach special level this year, but I think he's going to be, I think at the end of this season, we'll be like, okay, yeah, that was the right pick with the number 2 pick. And the Warriors should not trade this guy for, Pascal Siakam or whatever other players thrown out there. I like Wiseman a lot. Big year for him.
I think that's the key is like, I don't think by the end of this year we'll be like, oh, he's arrived.
Right.
As long as he can contribute important minutes and that's all that really matters is like just showing me more consistency because it was all a lot of flashes. It sort of worries me that he's coming into the season injured because that means that he didn't get the proper offseason like prep plan going. Mm-hmm. He wasn't able to like really hit the gym as much as he would like to. So he's going to come in a little bit slow. And I think that the killers are going to come out with the sniper rifles early in the season. They're going to be like, he's still bad. After a whole offseason, he's still bad. The Warriors still made a mistake. As long as he gets to a position of consistency and not even like excellent consistency, but just sort of mid-level consistency by the end of the season, then I'm thrilled. And that's also all the Warriors need out of him. Right.
They need to be like the 6th option on the team for him to have like a successful year. Curry, Clay, Draymond, Andre Iguodala's back, bless his soul. But those guys are older. And then they have these, young, super talented, unproven guys with Kuminga and Wiseman and Moody. Jordan Poole looks like he's revived himself. There were people who wanted him cut before last season from the team, and now he's like definitely going to be in like 6-man most improved player category. I don't know. I love the direction that this Warriors team is heading in.
I kept saying in the offseason, like the biggest addition that the biggest move that the Warriors could make is reacquiring Klay Thompson, because it's essentially like we haven't had him for 2 years now. So we've acquired Klay Thompson. And so we're adding that piece into the puzzle. Additionally, Jordan Poole is going to be good. He is going to be a 20-point scorer for the games that he's starting while Klay Thompson is still out. And then as long as we get a little bit of consistency out of Wiseman, that's all that matters. And then we don't even need Kuminga and Moody to be like if Kuminga and Moody have similar seasons to James Wiseman last year, like I still think we'll be okay.
Kuminga straight up might not play this year, if we're being honest. Like he could almost take a whole redshirt year, it seems like.
And I'd be fine with that.
Right.
I like the construction of the team going forward, and I do think that well, let me say this. If Jordan Poole wasn't looking like Michael Jordan Poole right now, then I'd be a little bit more concerned. But the fact that we have at least one solid, consistent sort of 6-man once Klay Thompson comes back, in addition to Andre Iguodala and
Otto Porter Jr.
Otto Porter Jr., who I've always been higher on than everyone else. And that's maybe a fault of mine.
The weird thing about Otto Porter Jr., to go on a quick tangent, is I feel like he's been hurt. He's never been a bad player. He was just like, we're like, oh, this guy's gotten like 2 $90 million contracts.
Right.
Like, that was always the weird thing about him. I digress though.
I think that by the end of the season, the team will be a lot better than they are at the start of the season. And that's when you want to hit your stride. And for those reasons, they are absolutely a contender in the West.
Right. So let's just get right into it then. Our last segment, finals picks. I'm going to go with mine first here. I'm going to beat you to the punch on this one. The NBA finals are going to be the Golden State Warriors.
Hell yeah.
Over the... I'm going to say the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay.
I think, the Bucks Nets race is really tight. This is, if Kyrie Irving comes back and all three of those guys are together, it will 100% be the Nets if those three are all healthy. I have like very little doubt about it in my mind. And they will probably win the finals too. Kyrie's not there though. For how long, forever, we don't know. And I think, with Durant, Durant to me is like, every day is just like climbing up the all-time rankings. Like, I think he's one of the best players to ever do it. And James Harden, they're still definitely contenders, and they're right there with the Bucks. But I think Durant got a lot of miles on him last summer with the Olympics and with the playoffs. You could say the same for Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton too. But I'm a little worried about Durant's health this year. I think is the one big thing for me. Coming off the injuries, and last year he missed a lot of time too. I don't know when they get to the playoffs how healthy he's going to be, and I just think Giannis ascended to another level in the finals. And I think with Giannis, Chris Middleton, who I'm a big fan of, and Drew Holiday, I think they got something really special there. The
Nets are like the obvious choice, even without Kyrie. Actually, real quick on the Kyrie thing, how funny would it be if they let him play, but they forced him to wear a mask the entire time?
That'd be really funny.
Just like basically putting a dunce cap on him.
Yeah,
like he can't
really
take it
funny. Off. Yeah.
No, but like without Kyrie, that hurts your chances a little bit. And let's not forget about the Atlanta Hawks, who I love, who ascended last year. Let's not forget about the Milwaukee Bucks, like you just said. Even though the 76ers... Let's
not forget about my New York Knickerbockers.
And let's not forget about the 76ers, even though it's a complete mess over there. Like, they'll win games.
And let's not forget about the Boston Celtics with the best player in the NBA, Jason Tatum.
Let's just keep going. Let's name every East.
And Jaylen Brown. Let's not forget about the Orlando Magic and Jalen Suggs.
Let's not forget about them. Long story short, to sound like an old man, maybe at the end of the season, we're all going to look back and be like, oh, it was silly that we weren't properly rating the Phoenix Suns, who made it back to the NBA Finals. Maybe that's going to be the case. Maybe it's going to be like, oh, no, the Nets were always going to win the finals. Maybe that's going to be the case. But I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. My finals pick, This is tough because I think that there is a very compelling argument for Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is super complete, and as long as Giannis is healthy, then they're going to be in the race. But God, honestly, it's so tough to pick from the West. I don't know which team. I don't want to pick.
Well, so that's why. Okay, let's talk on this really quick because I think it is interesting. That's why I went with the Warriors. A, because I'm a homer.
Sure.
But B, because I'm like, I don't think there is any clear best team in the West, so I might as well, pick my team. But like, you look at the West, you're like, okay, let's go through the teams. The Clippers, they don't have Kawhi Leonard, so I don't think they're going to be a title threat. This year. We already mentioned the flaws with the Lakers. The Jazz, we talked about their issues. The Nuggets are going to be without Jamal Murray for a large part of the year, and even with him, I don't know about that team. We've seen the Blazers. We've seen, we know who they are too. The Suns, really good team, but you're expecting a super high level from Chris Paul. We're hoping DeAndre Ayton stays at that level he was in the playoffs. And also just talking about their playoff run last year, they kind of had one of the easier runs to the playoffs in recent memories. Yeah. Injured Lakers, injured Clippers, injured Nuggets. So are they like a finals team? I don't know. The Warriors we talked about. I still think the Warriors winning the finals, they need to take a jump with some of those guys that we talked about in order to get there. They need Clay to come back at 85+%. They need Wiggins to take another step forward. There's just so many question marks on these teams that it's anyone's game, I feel in the West.
Yeah, because I feel uncomfortable saying any one of these teams is going to make it to the West. Here's the thing. I don't want to pick the Warriors for the West just because I expect the Bucks or the Nets to win the finals this year. So I don't want to say that the Warriors are going to lose in the finals because I just don't want to see that. That would break my heart. But also, what am I supposed to do? Pick the Lakers just because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis?
Yeah, you're going to call them you're one of the more overrated teams in the league 30 minutes earlier and then say they're going to go to the finals?
Yeah, and then because then also it brings into question what is this idea of overrated? Like if they make it to the finals, but they were never truly the second best team. Is that overrated or is that actually underrated because they were the second best team in the NBA technically?
Are you going to pick Luka Doncic to make it to the finals? Because that's the only guy on that team.
That's the only guy. And so, yeah, okay. Here's what I'll do because it is such a weird Western Conference and because I can't pick between the Nets and the Bucks. I will say the NBA Finals.
Minnesota Timberwolves.
Hell yeah. No, I'm actually going to go with you. I'm going to say the Warriors over the Bucks. Mm-hmm. Honestly, when I look at this Bucks team, it's a team that I really do believe will come back stronger after a title run than weaker. A lot of teams, they take their foot off the gas, but Giannis is just built different. And I think he's going to have a hyper competitive fire. I think it's going to be interesting.
They got some confidence to them now too.
Yes. Especially Chris Middleton, especially a lot of these Bobby Portis, a lot of these guys just gained a lot of confidence. And I don't think that they're going to be too drunk on the champagne. I think that they're going to look at their chances. They're going to say, Kyrie's out. We can take it again. And the West is weird. Let's go get it. I expect them to be in the hunt, just the same way that the Warriors were in the hunt for those title years. But unfortunately, it's going to come crashing down because I too am a homer and the Warriors are going to win the NBA Finals. Steph Curry will finally, no, actually, even better. Andre Iguodala will win Finals MVP for a second time.
Jonathan Kuminga, Finals MVP.
Yeah. Of course, that's a homer pick. A homer pick. It's not a real pick, but you can't root against your own team. And when the West is so weird, why not? Let's just be silly with it.
As long as the Warriors have a semblance of competitiveness to them, if there's a greater than 5% chance that they're going to win the conference, I will pick them every year.
Yeah.
That's just how it's going to be. I will say, I think, for storyline purposes, one of the most interesting finals we could get is the Nets versus the Warriors. James Harden against the Warriors team that has beaten him so many times before. Kevin Durant facing off against his old squad. Steph Curry trying to win a finals without Kevin Durant, which he already did, so I don't know why this is even a narrative. Andrew Wiggins, I think that would be I just threw Wiggins in there. Andrew Wiggins locking down Kevin Durant. I don't know. I feel like that would be a very interesting finals. But I think Warriors Bucks is the way to go.
I mean, this is like such a non-real pick, but like, who cares? You know, it's our podcast.
Right. Who cares? If the 30 people listen to this want to get mad, you can come fight me.
You can come fight us in the comments. Leave a comment. Leave a comment and a like. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment if you want to fight us. If you want to comment, go ahead and like this video.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Anything else you want to say before the outro?
I would strongly urge Kyrie Irving to get vaccinated.
Yep.
I think that one, he has not properly articulated really why he's not getting vaccinated, but I would say the logic is not apt. You sent me a tweet that Marjorie Taylor Greene said, like, which was so insanely insensitive. It was like, why does Kyrie have to get vaccinated for COVID-19 if the NBA let Magic Johnson play with HIV for so many years, which is just like horrifically offensive.
That woman is incredibly stupid.
Incredibly stupid. But my point just being like, COVID is a airborne pathogen. It stops being a personal decision and it starts being a public decision when we're talking about a airborne pathogen in the middle of a pandemic. So he's trying to make this about like personal choice. There have been many really well articulated points about like, we know about these guys when they tear their ACL and who the doctor is when they tear their ACL and like how long this timetable is going to be. We know about all of these other health things. So why do we draw the line at something that no longer is exclusively personal and instead starts to affect other people? So I would implore Kyrie Irving to get vaccinated. And then last thought, I had no expectations coming into this season whatsoever. So I'm hopeful that this season surprises me. I don't know what that means, but I'm just hopeful that the season surprises me. The way that we talked about the NFL coming into the season was so different. It was like, there's so much parity and there is so many interesting storylines and there's a lot of really competitive teams. And we had like a lot of joy and excitement this year. I'm not like super excited. I will be, because I love basketball. It's absolutely one of my favorite sports, but all I'm asking for is surprise. I hope that the season is surprising.
And I feel like that, last season, like the NBA felt kind of blah, like the last year and a half of the NBA until we got to that, moment where Giannis dropped 50 points and was like sitting on the bench crying, like until that moment, like, which I got emotional watching that. I'm not even a Bucks fan, but just seeing like that, like the power of sports, like that was great. I'm hoping we can like kind of carry that energy into this season, because the last couple of years of basketball have been a little underwhelming, I would say. As like great as the talent is in the league, as amazing like all-time players there are right now, the actual storylines themselves, kind of blah.
Yeah, it was kind of weird that like one of the biggest storylines was like Steph Curry, greatest shooter in the NBA's history, is going for the scoring title this year. Like that was one of the big storylines, Yeah, I definitely think that, I wouldn't say that the product is like in decline or anything like that. I think it's just the product is a product of COVID, and COVID has been so depressing and so confusing. And as we start to move further away from the height of the pandemic, hopefully the product will improve along with that as we track the downfall of COVID.
Right. Yeah. Like it's weird to be like, I'm watching a basketball game while like 5,000 people died today of COVID. Yeah. Of like a disease that like if people wore masks and like weren't selfish idiots, like the consequences of could have been greatly mitigated.
Right. We could have been out of this.
If people just weren't selfish, like we wouldn't have like 4,000 people dying a day.
Right. And so that has definitely taken a toll on the way that I've been watching basketball. I am looking forward to the season now that we've talked about it. I definitely got myself more interested again. Let's go Warriors. Let's make it to the finals. Let's get it. Andre Iguodala, MVP, number 2. Let's see it happen.
There you go. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave a comment on your thoughts about the season. If you enjoyed this, share it with a friend. One friend. That's all. You maybe got one of those. You can find us on Instagram at Nothing Notable. All the stuff, all the cliche stuff. Click a button. That's not the down button. Do something. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.